So I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I had a 4-way primary going up against folks that were 2-3 times my age.
At the age of 21, he was sworn into the Iowa House of Representatives, to become the youngest member ever to hold the position.
We knocked on thousands of doors. I made hundreds of phone calls to constituents across my district to ask them for their vote, ask them for their vote of confidence in me to be their state representative, and I won the primary by 100 votes.
Meet Joe Mitchell. Now at the age of 24, he has become a businessman, entrepreneur, and a major leader in the state of Iowa. Joe graduated from Drake University, where shortly after he started an organization called RunGenZ. RunGenZ's main mission is to empower, mentor young trailblazers from Generation Z to pursue leadership in their community and across the country. So let's dive a little further to see why Joe is a true American game changer. So you represent the district. Tell me about your district. What is everything that is, what represents your Iowa district that you are?
So obviously I'm a state representative, in Iowa. There's 100 state representatives across the state. There's 50 state senators. So each representative represents about 33,000 constituents. And so for me, that covers about one full county and parts of 3 others. And so those counties are Henry County, Washington, Jefferson, and Lee County. And so for folks, obviously, that aren't from Iowa, if you know where Iowa City is, which is in the eastern part of the state, it's about 40 minutes south of Iowa City, about 2 hours southeast of Des Moines.
So what made you want to take on, being in government, doing these things, it's not an easy deal. I think we were talking here, what was it $9 billion? What is the budget at Iowa budget that you guys
About
have?
$9 billion.
So a $9 billion budget. You're drastically affecting so many businesses, so many different things in the state. Why do that?
So, I started at the Capitol when I was 17 as a page. I wanted to, graduate early from high school and was thinking about going to college early. And my English teacher, Miss Weir, knew I was interested in politics and in history and government, those sorts of things, and so encouraged me to apply for the PAGE program, which is an internship for high school seniors to go to the Capitol, get a network with legislators and staff, hand out the coffee and the bills and the papers, but really get a real life experience of what it is to work in state government. And so I started up there doing that, just fell in love with it. Ended up going to Drake University in Des Moines, where I got my undergraduate degree in business. But while I was at Drake, I worked in the state Senate for 2 years as a clerk. I worked in the governor's office as an intern. I worked in Senator Joni Ernst's office as an intern. And so my junior year, I was working as an intern in the lobby, actually. And so my original plan is I thought I wanted to graduate early and then become a lobbyist for some kind of business association to represent business needs and advocacy issues in the state. And my predecessor, Dave Heaton, good friend of mine, decided to retire. And so he'd been there for 24 years, longer than I'd been alive. And so at that point, I had a decision to make. Was I going to run for my state representative seat back home or not? And so, it was very intimidating because, the minimum age to run in Iowa is 21. And so, at that point, I thought, what are my...
So you couldn't even run for governor if you wanted to, right?
No, I can't. Yeah.
How old are you again?
So I'm 24 right
24,
now.
okay.
Yeah.
So, you couldn't even run if you wanted to.
Yeah, so, but for state rep, it was 21.
Right.
And so I was 20 at the time. I knew I'd be 21 by election day. But, I thought, what are my friends? What are my family? What are my, colleagues going to think if this 21-year-old or 20-year-old at the time thinks that they can run for a state representative seat and win, right? And so I actually talked to my predecessor, Dave Heaton, about it. And David told me, he said, Joe, you're too young. You need a family, you need kids, you need more life experience, right?
I feel like that is a thing that a lot of older people say. You need more. You need, before you can go beyond, before you can do that thing that you believe you can do, you need to prove more.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And so, and he legitimately thought that, and he has changed his opinion on that now.
Thank God.
But for in the beginning, he was really discouraging me from doing it and said, you have your whole life ahead of you. You can do this in 10 or 15 years. But majority of other people I talked to, including former bosses and former representatives I trusted, they said, Joe, what do you have to lose? They said, if you lose the primary, you lose the primary, and you're going to regret it if you don't at least try. Right. And so I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I had a 4-way primary. I was, going up against folks that were 2-3 times my age. One who happened to be the party's favorite and somebody that my predecessor had picked out to run. But none of these other people knocked on doors and did the work. We knocked on thousands of doors throughout my campaign. I made hundreds of phone calls to constituents across my district to ask them for their vote, ask them for their vote of confidence in me to be their state representative. And I won the primary by 100 votes.
Wow.
And so, knocking on those doors and making those phone calls made a real difference. And, a reoccurring theme I heard at the doors was that, my generation has screwed things up. We're ready to pass it off to the next generation to see if they can fix things. And so they were ready to give young people a chance and young people a platform to be able to make change, to be able to, innovate, and be able to, help with the trajectory of the country what's happening right now.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many. I hear that a lot too when I've traveled this country and talked to so many different. And right there's a really demand and a need for young people to step up. When you were campaigning, what were some of the real difficulties? I when I look at a campaign, it's like running any marketing deal.
Yeah.
It's like running any kind. It's like running a business, like for a
it
short
is,
term period of time.
Yeah.
What is some of the hiccups, some of the challenges, things that kind of attacked you while you're doing it? How did you overcome those things?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing in state and local office is just be able to have the determination each day to get up and go knock doors. Because it's discouraging at times.
So I knocked doors in Arizona.
Sure.
And middle of the heat.
Yeah.
It's very discouraging.
And the weather is another factoring thing.
Iowa, yeah.
But the thing is, being able to wake up each and every day and know that you're going to knock at some people's doors that are going to hate you. Yep. You're knocking at some people's doors that love you, and the majority of them are going to be pretty complacent and just not really want to have conversation. But knowing that if you do that, that is the key to success in any state or local race that you're running for.
Did you ever knock on a door of someone that really just blew you away, good, bad, or something that was?
Yeah, several. So actually my first day door knocking, or probably some of my most memorable, funny and kind of scary stories. So like the third door I knocked on this guy's door. He comes out and he asked me, what I'm doing, who I'm with, and I said, well, I'm running for the Republican primary in the district, and he just starts going off on Trump and cursing me out, whatever else, and slams the door in my face. That was for sure the worst one I ever had. But it was the third door I ever knocked on my life because I never even worked on campaigns before my own.
Right.
And so this is the first campaign I ever worked on was my own, right? So, but then later that day, I was knocking on this guy's door, and so I knock on it, and I don't know how many times to knock before I should, give up and go to the next door. So I knocked on it 3 times. Hear this guy come down the stairwell, and he's just stomping. So he's obviously upset. I woke him up from my nap or something, right? So he flings open the door and asks me what I want. He's like yelling, and so he's like, probably 5'8", ponytail, like stocky dude, and like this guy could kick my butt, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, he's screaming out. He's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, don't worry about it, sir. I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave." And he's like, "No, you woke me up from a nap. Like, what do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm Joe Mitchell. I'm running for the Republican primary here in the district to replace Dave Heaton. Blah blah." And he said, "You say you're a Republican?" And I'm like, "This could be really good or really bad." And I was like, "Yeah, I am, sir. And he's like, "Oh, okay," and like steps out and he's like, "Oh, that's great." He's like, "I'm a Republican too, blah, blah, blah." And so he starts telling me about how his wife went to Drake University where I was going to school at the time and how he'd worked with Dave Heaton for years and this and that. And he told me, he said, "If you promise to me to never hire my taxes ever again, I will vote for you for the rest of your life." And so I was like, "Well, I'm not sure if I could promise that, but I'll try my best." You know what I mean? And he said, "And remember old Marty when you get to the White House and bring him with you." And so, but anyways, every couple of months, Marty will email me.
Wow.
And ask me how things are going and say, give my best to Kim Reynolds or our governor and whatever else. So, but those are the types of stories that make it worth it as well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's in so many ways is you have to knock the door, right? Like that doesn't happen. You don't know what this guy's wanting. You don't know the mood, but you have to knock the door.
Yeah.
You have to go and same with business, same with anything. It's go knock the door. You have to go ask the question.
And 9 times out of 10, because you knocked on these people's door, and most of these people, especially like, Heaton had been there for 24 years, so he never knocked on a door, right, for 24 years.
Right.
So nobody had ever seen this before. So when I was going around knocking on doors And my
And
opponent,
Heaton,
my
so
predecessor,
he was a person that was in, how long was he sitting in that
24
seat?
years.
So he was sitting in that seat for 24 years
Yeah.
and never knocked on,
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, he just wasn't in,
maybe he did the first time he ran.
but
Yeah,
after
maybe,
a while, after 24
yeah,
years,
once
it's
you're
like,
incumbent, and we're in a
yeah,
fairly safe conservative district as
yeah.
well. So if you don't have a primary, you don't have to worry about anything. But
Mhm.
my opponents were knocking on doors though, and so I did. And so I came to people's doors and said, nobody else has came to my door. You got my vote. So that was extremely important, and I think in many races that's the case.
Yeah.
If you go out there and do the work, and then once you go through knocking every single door in your district of your primary voters, you go back again.
Yeah.
And you hit the people that didn't answer the door. They left the flyer there,
So do you plan on if you run again, you're going to be knocking these doors and doing a lot of the same grassroots?
Well, so
Or are you going to get a big head like a lot of these guys do?
No. Well, so this last time around, because I didn't have a primary challenger,
Okay.
and I ended up winning 72-38 my district
Right.
against the Democrats, and they weren't knocking anyways. But
Mhm.
what I did is since I knew I was in a safe district and I didn't have a primary, I went out and I knocked doors for my other colleagues, and so
Right.
I was going around the state traveling, and I was raising a bunch of money this time too for my colleagues that needed it. But specifically,
How does that help you? So maybe that's a selfish way to put it, but like, I think that is an important deal. It's like helping the other people around
Yes.
you. It's not just yourself that you want to, but like, how did that help you by going out there for other people?
Well, so you have to have a majority to get anything done,
Right.
right? So if you're in the minority, which the Republicans are, in the federal level, they are more than less useless right now, for lack of a better term. And so you have to be in the majority to pass pieces of legislation, pass initiatives that you want to do, and so it's in your best interest as a member of that caucus to help your other colleagues out.
Yeah.
And so, but the other thing is too is I'm an assistant majority leader right now, and then in the Iowa House, that's a position that you have to be voted on by your colleagues to be able to get there. And so it's like any other business, you have to
Right.
make friendships with folks that you work with if you want to be able to have more influence and move up the ladder in your caucus and really ultimately be able to help your district out. Because if you make enemies in the legislature, especially in your own party, and they control, say, the Senate, for instance, right? If there's some senators that don't like you, then your bill's dead on arrival. If the governor doesn't like you, your bill could be dead on arrival, right? So you have to be able to build these relationships with folks, and that's all it was about with me being able to go around and help people out in their own home districts and be able to say that, hey, I'm here for you, and I'll put the man hours in to be here to knock doors for you because you're in a lot tighter race than I was in my general.
Right.
This last time around.
You're an elected representative in the state of Iowa. I don't know, I know in Arizona it's like salary is like 24,000. I don't know what it is.
25,000.
It's 25. Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's 25,000 in Iowa. That probably doesn't pay
No.
all the bills.
No, it does
doesn't
not.
keep,
Yeah.
I think that's so what else do you do? So on top of what you do, and then what else do you do, but how do you manage the things that you are a part of?
Yeah, so obviously being in the legislature, it's a challenge. I mean, you can't necessarily have a 9-to-5 job, and so we're in session January through April.
Is it yearly for that? So I know some are
Yeah, yearly. Yeah,
Okay,
we're yearly.
okay,
Yeah,
January,
so January through April is when we're in session every year, and we're normally there like Monday through Thursday, doing things. And so I call it the off season, but it's not really the off season because I'm still going around campaigning and raising money, and I also had to work on constituent issues, my own bills. But I do real estate on the side, and so I have several rental properties that I'm doing a development right now for my folks, where we're building some condos in my hometown of Mount Pleasant, and so that keeps me busy and kind of pays the bills when the legislature is not in session. But then also I have my organization RunGenZ, which I don't get paid from right now. Hopefully someday. But that takes up the majority of my time.
Really? So tell me more about RunGenZ then.
So RunGenZ stands for Run Generation Z, and the mission statement we have is to empower, recruit, and mentor the next generation of conservative leaders across America to run for state and local office. So I created this organization with 4 of their state representatives, 2 gals from Florida, a guy from West Virginia, another guy from New Hampshire, all of whom are state representatives, all got elected under the age of 25, all my similar age. And so now we have about 30 elected officials that are involved in our coalition to help mentor the next generation of conservative leaders. And we've had hundreds of applicants across the country that are ready to step up and run for city council and school board and state legislative positions across this country. But what we do is we're partnered with folks like Turning Point USA, college Republicans, young Republicans, and we'll go to their conferences, we'll go to their chapters, speak to these young people, really share our story and help to empower them to want to run for office. At that point, they can go to our website and fill out the Become a Leader tab, which is almost like a job application. They fill out where they're from, what their qualifications are, what their passions are, and we figure out what's the most viable office for them to run for right now, whether that may be city council or school board or a state legislative position, county commissioner. Figure out what's the most viable option for them to run for right now to be successful at that. Recommend they run for that. Once they accept a recommendation, pair them up with a mentor to help them through that process, somebody that's already been there and done that, and that's already an elected official at their age.
Yeah. We touched on this earlier, and older generations that are like, you need to do more. Why do your resume is not where it needs to be effective and to run this stuff. What do you say to the young people, that might have the hesitations, that say, hey, my resume's not there. Are you guys doing anything to, that's what some I think would be a pushback on some of this is like, what the heck do you guys know? How do you guys push back on that?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that, we as young people right now have the time and the energy to devote towards our constituents, to devote towards the campaign trail. A lot of us, don't have, a significant other and children right now that we had to be spending time with after work, right? And so you can spend that time knocking on doors, talking to your constituents, doing campaign events, things of that nature. But the other thing is that, many of these positions we're talking about, we're not talking about Congress, we're talking about very part-time jobs. So the state legislature is a little less part-time than what a city council position would be or a school board position. But specifically, if you're in those local roles, you're going to have your own 9-to-5 job, and you can work on your professional career outside of that. And so this isn't you, instead of being an engineer, or instead of being a doctor, being in politics. This is you doing that as well, but also being a public servant on the side to be able to help your community out.
When you think about leadership, especially young leadership, you're a young leader. What should young leaders be inspired by? What inspired you, to do this, to take on and to get other people? Was there that apple drop on your head moment? Was there a moment that just made you like, I'm doing this?
Well, so I think when you look at, specifically our state's history in Iowa, right? Our speaker right now, Pat Grassley, who's the grandson of Chuck Grassley, Pat got elected at the age of 22.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Pat got elected at the age of 22. He's now, 37 and the Speaker of the House, right? Our majority leader, Matt Winchell, got elected at 23. Now he's, the majority leader in the House, whatever else, and so on. And, the chairman of our board for RunGenZ, Governor Terry Branstad, former ambassador to China as well, he's the longest serving governor in American history. But he got elected to the state legislature at 25.
Wow.
And so, Iowa has had a history of electing, young leaders that have, became very successful leaders for our state and very good leaders. And Governor Branstad is the epitome of that, right? And so, I think looking historically at our state's history, but also around the country, James Madison was, he was 25 when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Obviously, he was, a signer on the Constitution just a few years later. But many of our founding fathers, were young men in their 20s and 30s, right? Yeah. Minus Benjamin Franklin, but I
don't think Ben Frank was in his.
No, he was in his 60s or 70s, yeah. But the point of that though is that our founding fathers, when they came together to declare independence from Great Britain and to sign the Constitution, it was it was a diverse group of young and old, right?
Right.
And that's what we need in our governments across the United States right now, is just old, right? And so I'm not saying that we want to disproportionately take over these governmental bodies, which is young people. I'm saying that we're underrepresented right now, and 100%. We need a seat at the table.
100%. Joe, thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
Hope you're here in Southern California more. Truly inspired by everything that you're doing. RunGenZ is a great organization. I think that, you know, the future impact we're gonna see it here soon. So thank you again for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.